do you think that it's like his balance sheet growing so much and just in taking on more and more cash? That's obviously in the legacy world is such a big thing, and everyone's like, does it go back to what you were saying? Because he thinks that there is this big craziness transition, maybe hot wars coming, and that's what he was preparing for in theory, or was it more of like we just said, he's older and he's kind of like, hey man, I've done my job here, like I don't know what else to do at this point.
I think he's just doing that based on his old systems, where when he sees the
Mm,
valuations of the stock market relative to the underlying GDP of the country, he moves to cash more, and that's what he's always done, and it's always worked well. I think it's clear, and I've been public about this in the past, and that's why I remained a shareholder. I've been critical of this cash pile, even though the fiat world
yeah,
celebrates it. They all do the polite golf clap, like, "Oh my goodness, look at that! He
yeah,
increased his cash pile again to 300 some billion." And I think that's pure foolishness, right? I mean, it's a melting ice cube. He's losing purchasing power. His shareholders are losing purchasing power over time. And if you don't believe me, look at the price of Berkshire relative to Bitcoin over time. It's going down and to the right. It's getting decimated. So he should absolutely today, right now, Berkshire Hathaway should put at least 10% of that cash, pull it out of these short-term treasuries, put it into Bitcoin. And if he was really smart, he'd put all of it into Bitcoin. But they're not going to. Could the new leaders, Greg Abel and whatever the new C-suite, decide to get into Bitcoin? They will. It's inevitable to me. They'll be forced to do it. Otherwise, they'll go obsolete and they'll go out of business sooner than later. Um, and so to me, it's just a matter of time when they'll do that. They can't do it while Buffett is still alive because he would be greatly offended by that. But one last thing about Buffett, by the way, and I don't follow it that closely anymore because that's sort of old world, old tech. Berkshire is. He at his most recent meeting basically totally laid out the reason for Bitcoin. Right?
that's
He
right.
talked about monetary debasement. If government has the ability to create more money and debase the population, they will do that. And he was kind of had a scathing opinion of that and did not respect that. And then but what he doesn't say is therefore you should buy Bitcoin. Right? Therefore you should move to this system that you can't debase, that you can't create more of. Therefore, you should move to proof of work money instead of this proof of stake nonsense. But he doesn't, and he won't. He won't do that before he dies. But the next round of leadership, I think, probably will at some point. So, in the meantime, I'm not in Berkshire anymore, and I don't care.
Oh man, that was an unbelievable, what was it, a couple minute like segment where he just laid it all out. And because like a lot of people, I mean a lot of Bitcoiners, I guess over the years just kind of been like, does he get it? Like, like you're kind of like he's a
Right.
smart dude, like he's got to understand. It was kind of like the unveiling of like, oh yeah, I've gotten it the whole time, but like I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say it, but I'm not going to say it. That was fascinating. Like you said, when he's retiring, here's my last thing, and then he drops that and you're kind of like, wait, what? Like where's
Right.
wild. Okay, so we touched on it briefly. So the master trade, there's all these leverage plays on what MicroStrategy is doing, and there's all these people coming in, like you said, this raft of people coming in. Is this, I would love for you to unpack just some potential. We saw the GameStop stuff a couple years ago, and we saw, what was it, Citadel, or they had to like halt trading and things like that. Could we potentially see some stuff like this coming down the road once people, I guess kind of two questions, but could we see some of these short squeezes coming with Bitcoin or Bitcoin plays with companies that are doing stuff like this? And also, could crypto start becoming more obsolete in the sense that if people start catching on to Bitcoin related companies and what's happening, do people start possibly flocking over to do this in a Bitcoin world in crypto? Because that was a lot of the allure of crypto. It's like, well, it's going to beat Bitcoin this cycle, or it's going to do this and that. But now Saylor's kind of obsolete. I mean, at least from my amateur eyes, it just seems like he's obsoleting a lot of like what people are trying to do in these other areas. Like, well, I'm going to go trade and make more fiat in this crypto, and then I'm going to come and save it in Bitcoin. I would love for you to unpack just how, some of the potential or just the opportunity, I guess, people are going to have in this world and what it might look like.
This is another one of those areas where it's actually sort of hard to imagine what it's going to look like. But we've been talking about this. I mean, Brandon, we've been
Mm-hmm.
talking about this for years and years, way back on Twitter Spaces about.
Yeah.
To me, it's always been inevitable, and to most people, that Bitcoin was going to enter into Wall Street, and Wall Street would embrace it eventually, and they're going to create this whole new raft of products so that they could benefit from Bitcoin as
Yep.
well. So we knew it was going to come. When MicroStrategy started doing what it did, we're like, yeah, that seems about right. Then they got really creative, right? That's the fun thing about having an MIT engineer, creating financial products. And I love what they're doing, right? Because what they're doing is they're looking for where there is need in the traditional fiat market, where there's just copious amounts of money. There's just so many dollars floating around in there, and they're finding a way to siphon those dollars and suck them into the Bitcoin network, and take that purchasing power from Wall Street, from fiat, bring it into the Bitcoin network. And that's why I love seeing these other competitors doing the same sort of thing. So I think as this bull market starts to pick up steam, and I do think, and we haven't talked about this yet, but based on kind of where the global monetary supply is going, based on delayed effects of the US dollar strength and weaknesses, I think we're going to see another significant leg up right now. I've been saying that since we were down in the low 80s, that we could possibly plunk down to 70 to 75K. If that happens, I think it's a low probability. I have a Nostr post about this, but I would view that as a huge buying opportunity. And then I think we get to new all-time highs from sometime between mid-May to mid-June, which it looks to me like we're on track for that. I think we'll probably be, and this isn't a prediction, it's just based on kind of what the dollar strength is doing and weakness and monetary supply and all this kind of stuff that I follow, global liquidity. I think we're going to be approaching kind of 130 to 150 $1,000 per Bitcoin by the end of June, somewhere in that time period, which is not too far away. And as that happens, we're going to see a lot of excitement for all of these things, these new products coming into the Bitcoin market, right? We talk about MicroStrategy, Jack's new company, that 21 is coming probably. It's not official yet. It has to get approved with Cantor Equity Partners, but they're obviously following that strategy. We have MetaPlanet and Dylan over in Japan. Lots of imitators coming. David Bailey just announced a treasury company, Bitcoin treasury company coming down the pike. Many more imitators are coming this cycle, and I think we haven't reached the crazy phase yet, but we're going to get to the crazy phase of this cycle. What does that mean for the rest of crypto? Crypto, I can't stand it, but they ride the coattails of Bitcoin's success. So as we get to more of a risk-on environment and people start gaining confidence and start putting on leverage, I think we'll see another resurgence in crypto. It doesn't help that we have a president with a dang Trump coin. I just can't stand that stuff, but it is what it is, right? And as a free market guy, I'm like, whatever, if you want to speculate in that nonsense, go for it, but make sure to save in Bitcoin, because you're not actually making money or gaining purchasing power unless you're gaining Satoshis. And so if you do that, go for it. But please save in Bitcoin. That's my advice to everybody. I think a lot of that stuff is coming, and I don't think we've seen the end of it. I think we're in the early stages, especially for this bull market, where we're going to see a lot of crazy things happening, and it's going to come fast and furious. And I think we're going to see a lot of private equity investments in the Bitcoin space, which is new. That hadn't happened in the past cycles. Lots of public companies that are just going to be all in on Bitcoin. That's new since the prior cycle. And it's going to, be what pushes Bitcoin to much higher levels, I think, in the coming year or so.
So it's a perfect segue to, talking about just some price related things and just this kind of a section of it. What people are talking about price suppression and what, the last, handful of months, and why isn't it just, there's so much great news. There's so many things going on. Why isn't the price at 200 already or 150? What's happening? Are there going to be, so is this just solely an M2 watch party, or just I had to sit and watch M2 and that's what's been happening this whole time? And people are just kind of missing the forest from the trees here? Or when, as Raoul Pal would say, who I do like listening to Raoul Pal, actually. He goes off the rails with his, crypto stuff, but I feel like he's a good analyst. I would actually love your thought on him analyzing markets, because I think he's a fascinating guy. But his banana zone, right? And the banana zone, is it M2? Like, I would love you to unpack this a little bit and your thoughts on the suppression aspect, or is it just, again, is it M2 watch party here?
So I'm glad you brought up Raoul. A lot of people rip on him because he's also a crypto bro, right? Clearly. But he's brilliant. He's a brilliant macro thinker, and his partner Julian Battel, who does a bunch of macro for him, is brilliant. And those guys, I think, do some of the best work in the macro space. And I feel bad for Bitcoiners who just discredit him because he's a crypto bro. Like we all have our sins, right? Like we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. I have weaknesses, right? I have weaknesses, but just because I have weaknesses doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about in a couple of areas. And so that's how I view him too. And he's also not doing poorly with his stuff. Like he's making a lot of money in his crypto bro stuff. So whatever. So that's that. the point is, though, regarding the Bitcoin cycle, I think, and I try to be as clear as possible about this, and I feel like it's so funny to me because people don't believe it, and I keep saying the same thing over and over. It's global liquidity, and is it accelerating or is it increasing or decreasing, and is it moving to the governments or to the people? Those are the factors that you have to watch. And so if you have a period where you have global liquidity increasing and it's moving from the governments to the people, that is very bullish. That means that the government is basically saying, we've got the short end, the cautious end of the risk curve. Y'all can move out here further on the risk curve, and we have ample liquidity to support your craziness, right? And as we get further and as time goes on and people are further out the risk curve, then you start adding leverage, and that's what causes these exponential rises at the end of bull market. So we're not there yet, but that's coming, I think, based on all the stuff that I'm watching. And then on top of that, it's the business cycle. So these two things have to play together. And when they get in sync, when you have an increasing business cycle and increasing global liquidity, that is super, super bullish for Bitcoin. And so what threw me for a little bit back in February, I had kind of like a 24-hour period of panic, and I even posted a little video about it, like because the current Trump administration policies, I thought were pulling from the future into the present a recession. They were making things crazy for a little while, right?
Yeah.
Whether you agree or disagree, and I'm not judging their policies, but I'm saying because of these tariffs and because of cutting government spending and because of the confusion that caused businesses to import tons of stuff out of fear, that hits the GDP hard. Whether or not it's a temporary thing doesn't really matter because the economy sees that and the stock markets front run that and they crash, and Bitcoin sees that and they crash. But what has since happened, and it happened, I believe, in April, is we've reached peak bearishness. Everybody was freaking out. I think that it basically reset this cycle a little bit. What I'm most curious about is, does this business cycle get pushed forward into 2026? I was initially looking at Q4 of 2025, basically a continuation of these 4-year cycles that we've been seeing. I still don't know if it's going to still be a peak in Q4 of 2025, so basically 7 months or so from now, or will it extend into 2026? I can't answer that right now. So otherwise, though, I would say that everything looks super bullish to me. So I think the business cycle has been getting hammered. It was trying to recover. Manufacturing was trying to recover, and then it got beaten down. And now I think everything is going to start surprising to the upside, including, by the way, I think the next inflation print. So we get the CPI for the month of April very soon in the next couple of days, I believe.
If you like that clip, then you definitely got to check out this next spicy clip. I think you're really going to like it. Come on, check it out. But if you want the full version, the full interview, and check that out over here. Come on, do it. I'll see you in there.